Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there and having a great start to your day and a great start to your week. Folks, this is going to be an incredibly active weather week. There's so much going on. When I wake up each morning, it's like one thing is adding to another. I woke up this morning, you even had more going on. The severe weather threat has increased. There's another severe weather risk at the end of this week. We have multiple storm systems to track, multiple major winter storms to track. There's so much going on. It's like an information overload. So that's what we're here to do. We're going to break down what's going on today first, but I can tell you in today's forecast kind of portion of the video, we're going to extend it out to like Tuesday and Wednesday and kind of give you updates on what's going on with this first storm system that, as you can tell on your screen, is cranking up across the country. So take advantage of those timestamps. We'll have everything sectioned out pretty well. There'll be a separate severe weather segment of this. And then at the very end, we will talk about, we're obviously going to talk about that second storm too, but there could be a third storm now coming like at the end of this coming weekend to early next week. Model guidance is already honing in on it. This could be a major winter storm for areas further south, even further south than maybe the second one. There's so much going on. So a couple things before we get going. One, we got the neighbors' kids in the house this morning. So typically when the neighbors' kids and my kids get together, there's a little bit more, loud noises in the background. So if you hear anything, that's just kids. We take the neighbors' kids to school every once in a while, a couple times a week actually. Number two, I want to thank Christine Roberts. She donated to the channel. Sometimes when people donate to the channel through PayPal or Cash App, there's not a way to email you folks back. So I've been meaning to give you a shout out. Thank you for donating to the channel. It tears my nerves up when I don't have an email to email you guys back. But I just want to say a special thank you for donating to the channel. And with that being said, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And guys, I'm going to miss stuff here and there. Since I started my YouTube channel in 2020, I've never seen so much weather to talk about. There's way too much going on in a 5-day span, but here we are. We're going to try to break it down. I don't know how anybody in the weather YouTube world can make a video that's 8 to 15 minutes long and break down all this in detail. You must be talking about 500 miles per hour to do that. So here to break it down for you folks. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. So I can pray over it and so others can do so too. So this is what's going on right now. A lot of rain across Oklahoma. A line of storms is beginning to develop in areas of Texas. There's a sector of ingredients already beginning to build into southeast Texas. We will have a risk of severe weather in this area, and then it'll continue to chug eastward. We'll talk about all that. Mostly rain in Kansas right now, but you're beginning to switch to snow in western Kansas, and blizzard conditions will start on and off throughout the day into tonight. We got a lot of moisture entering the Pacific Northwest. We got snow that's developed across the north central U.S. and most of the southeast and northeast is pretty quiet. A little lingering snow action flying around. Shows pink down here in the deep south, but I don't think that's really hitting the ground as any kind of winter weather. So this is what's going on right now. Let's move forward. So today there's an enhanced risk. There's a slight risk. Let's talk about that first. A slight risk, level 2 out of 5, from basically west of Houston all the way to just west of Tallahassee. So that's a level 2 out of 5 risk, a slight risk. You got the enhanced risk, which covers up all of southeast Louisiana, most of southern Mississippi, extreme southern sections of Alabama, and then the western panhandle of Tennessee. We will get more detailed on this here in a second, so hold tight. I know I normally will break down the actual threat levels in this little area right here, but we'll do that here in a second when we get to the southeast frame of this video. There's a risk for flash flooding. There's a moderate risk, which means there's at least a 40% chance of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles in a given location in this red area. 15% risk of the same criteria in the yellow. So yes, we are going to have a flash flooding risk today, especially tonight. And goodness gracious, look at all this. You got blizzard warnings in the red, winter storm warnings in the pink, wind advisories in this tan color, flood watches down here, high wind warnings, high wind watches, winter storm watches up for northern Maine, flood watches up for the mid-Atlantic, the southern New England region. You're already getting reintroduced a ton of weather alerts up here in the Northwest and Northern Rockies, high wind warnings, high wind watches. High wind warnings are like the more mustard color. It's so easy to get confused. High wind watches is more the darker kind of brown colors right into here. So honestly think they should reverse that with the color code. But anyways, winter storm watches in Idaho, winter storm warnings, blizzard warnings. I mean, there is so much going on, folks. It's just information overload. But here we are. We even have, if you look right here, we have high wind watches in the coastal sections of North Carolina all the way up the coastline. Let me make sure that is high wind. Yeah, high wind watches. So there's so much going on. So much going on, folks, and it will continue to be the common thing. Let's talk about the southeast first. So this morning, it's pretty quiet. And if you folks in Texas think I'm leaving you out in this, I got Texas broken up in the south central frame. So utilize that. We're going to break down Louisiana basically to Georgia, the Carolinas in this. But we're going to have a separate segment for Tuesday's severe weather threat. So I will have everything labeled out well on the timestamps. So we get this going. We're getting into about midday. This is the danger zone for eastern and southeastern Texas, especially southeastern Texas. The ingredients quickly build into this region. You see all these storms right here that we'll talk about more here in a second. Now, this is when it gets dangerous for the deep south. The sun's setting. It's around 7 p.m. This is in Eastern time, so about 7 p.m. You got a lot of storm activity bubbling up in southern sections of Louisiana. And the thing is, this is just going to sweep across the deep south throughout the overnight hours. Heavy rain at the front end of this, very gusty winds, even where you're just getting plain old rain. And look at these storms moving into Alabama. This is the middle of the night after midnight, and then we're waking up Tuesday morning with a wicked line of storms moving across the deep south states. And even though the severe weather threat isn't as high in Atlanta, I think you're going to get some very strong winds associated with this line of storms. Severe weather threat could very well be bumped up a little bit further north. We'll watch. But let's go on and break this down more detailed and more zoomed in. So you got the enhanced risk right here, level 3 out of 5. This is a big deal. The yellow risk is a level 2 out of 5. The dark green is a level 1 out of 5. Marginal, green, yellow, slight, orange, enhanced. Red is moderate, and we very well could get that in the next update. So just a reminder, another update will drop at about 8:30, 8:45. So some of this might be old information, but in general, it's the same theme. Dangerous, severe weather threat, especially once the sun sets tonight. So we got this. What about the tornado threat with this? There is a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. There's also, in the yellow area, there's also a 10% hatched risk. It's not added on the 10, the other 10 to make it 20. It's just its own thing. So there's also a 10% risk of a significant tornado, which is an EF2 or higher, the Storm Prediction Center considers. So, I mean, this includes New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Gulfport, up to Hattiesburg, Mobile, and to the western panhandle of Texas. Not Tennessee, Mitch. Texas. No, not Texas. Florida. So, it's not a laughing matter. If you folks has been tuning in for a while know that I like to mix up Florida with Tennessee and Texas, and I have no idea why. It's just something that I do for whatever reason. So Florida. Wind threat with this, I don't think the hail threat's going to be that big, but I'm sure we'll have reports of hail. 30% risk in this red area of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour. But you also have, you see the checkered marks, a 10% risk of significant winds. So you got a hatch risk. Man, sorry, I'm trying to fly through this, and I really just need to slow down. But there's so much information I have to fit into a pretty small amount of time. So let's just slow it down. A 10% hatched risk. So which means you have a 10% risk of winds exceeding 65 knots or higher, which is around 70 to 75 miles per hour. So the winds are going to be a big threat along with a tornado threat tonight. So please be weather aware in this area. And this is the reason why. The latest long-range H-triple-R model will start off this morning. A lot of heavy rain will begin to enter your area in southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, even into southern Alabama as we get into this afternoon, this evening. Once we start to get to 5, 6 p.m., these are when the dangerous storms could work its way off the Gulf of Mexico into the coastal regions of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, even into Florida as we get a little bit later in the night. So there's two things going on. One thing, there's a line of storms developing back here around at 8, 9 p.m. tonight, right along the Mississippi River. A lot of storm activity, and even up here where the severe weather threat isn't as high, you got a lot of strong wind action. But you have a sector building into here where you have this line developing, and it looks like a warm front rising north. This is where you're going to have rotating thunderstorms down into this region. And this keeps on going, and you got to watch all these little storms right into here. around Hattiesburg, point south to Gulfport, and getting into Mobile. And this is in the middle of the night, folks. It's around 11 p.m., midnight. At the same time, you have this nasty line of storms making its way through southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi. This continues. We're like at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, folks. A lot of people are sleeping. If there's any night you want to pull an all-nighter, I would do it tonight in the Deep South. It's just a big threat of severe weather. You got to stay aware somehow, especially if you sleep like a rock. But you got to watch for all these what we call prefrontal storms, because this is the cold front associated with the line of storms. But all this right in here could be producing a tornado along with the actual line of storms. A lot of strong winds out ahead of this. And then there's going to be many spin-ups in this line. And I mean, this line is blasting through Birmingham, Montgomery in the wee hours of the morning. And then we're starting to get into Tuesday mornings around 6, 7 a.m. This line of storms is making its way through the western panhandle of Florida, southeast Alabama, and then it's go time for the rest of the southeast. And we'll talk about that here in a second. So we'll just speak on the next 24 hours. The updraft helicity swath, this indicates how much, this particular one, it tries to say where the best chance of rotating thunderstorms is. That doesn't mean you're going to get a tornado just where these storms are rotating. And here it is. It really likes basically the area where the enhanced risk is. It's a highlighted area right into here. Southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, and the panhandle of Florida. And this actually takes us to about Tuesday afternoon. So, it likes this area for rotating thunderstorms. You notice it cuts off fast once you get into the Mid-South region. So, you're just not going to have thermodynamics supportive for tornadoes up here. Thermodynamics means your higher moisture levels and your CAPE levels. But you're going to have strong winds associated with this too. And this is the H-4 model and wind gust. And here it comes. This is predicted wind gust swaths. So this is going to just keep it on the screen. And here it goes. And this is getting into tonight. I mean, look up here, the Cumberland Plateau. I mean, 50 to 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts just associated with heavy rain. Now, don't get me wrong. You could have thunderstorms up here, but you're not going to have that tornado threat really up here. But I mean, look at southern sections of Tennessee, northern Alabama, 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts later this evening. Look at these winds in the Smokies, just ripping. And you keep this going, and I mean, all the way through tomorrow morning. And look at these winds, scattered about 50 to as much as 65 mile per hour wind gusts, even if you're not in the storms. But of course, immediately associated with the storms, somebody's probably going to get a 75, 80 mile per hour wind gust somewhere. So a lot of winds coming for this area. Next thing you look at is rain. There's a flooding risk that's just not going to be looked at as much because so much other stuff is going on. But anywhere from 2 to as much as maybe 4 inches of rain just between, really, I would say this afternoon and tomorrow morning. So, I mean, this isn't really over the course of 24 hours. It's really like a 12-hour period. So a lot of rain is going to fall fast. So a flooding threat is here. That's why you have flood watches down here in areas of Louisiana and even Mississippi. What about the CAPE levels? This has always been the wild card area, but you keep this going, and we're not going to dive super deep into the ingredients. We've been doing that for days. Now it's just time to give you guys, the real great information here. We know what's going into this now, but I will show you the CAPE levels. Look how much they rise into southwest Louisiana. Guys, when you have all these other ingredients and you have CAPE levels rising above 1,000 joules per kilogram mixed in with all the other overlapping dynamics, it is not good. That's why they've dramatically increased the severe weather threat over the last 24 hours. And this keeps going. If you notice, there's no CAPE up here. It's just skinny corridor right here, right in the Gulf Coast line. And this keeps on going. It continues to be skinny. And then, we'll talk more on this here in a second, but you notice the CAPE levels rise further northward. But I mean, this isn't very high, but 500 joules per kilogram of CAPE and mixed in with all this other stuff, it will support tornadoes. And that's why there's a higher tornado threat for tomorrow now. We'll talk more on that here in a second. Let's talk about the Northeast. And like I said, if you're wondering what about the threat for tomorrow, I've mentioned many times in the beginning of this video, I have a separate segment for tomorrow's severe weather threat. But today in the Northeast, enjoy it. It's quiet. Some snow along the Finger Lakes region, southern tier, maybe some snow showers. Getting into this afternoon. Quiet. It's nice to take a break as we get to the Northeast, which is much more quiet. So kind of taking a breather through this segment of the video, just breathe. And then you get into this evening, get in the overnight hours, and here comes all the weather right here. And I think you could start off as some very heavy wet snow in northern Ohio tomorrow morning. Really heavy wet snow, but it does not stay snow very long. You do have winter weather advisories up in the southern Alps and the central Alps, West Virginia, even Virginia, North Carolina. A little bit of ice, a little bit of snow. But we'll stop it right here, and then we'll continue this as we get into another frame of the video. But, this would be a bigger deal if everything else wasn't going on. But here we are. A solid glaze of ice is possible in the North Carolina mountains. A little bit of a glaze in West Virginia, Virginia, and then could get as much as a 1/4 inch of ice, maybe, and tucked into this area right here in just north of western Maryland into southwest PA, and a little bit of snow too. Take a look at snow. Could get another few inches of snow added on to what you already got still on the ground in these areas. So another anywhere from 1 to as much as 3 inches of snow in this area, getting into central PA too. Starts off with some heavy wet snow. South central U.S., here we go. Getting crazy again. All right, waking up this morning, H-triple R miles doing pretty darn well. And we keep this going. Let's talk about the severe weather side of this first, and then we'll talk about the snow. But we'll kind of talk about both at the same time. 993 millibar low, about midday, moving into southwest Kansas. Heavy snow, wind-driven snow in eastern Colorado, western Kansas. You got this little dry slot right here moving into central Kansas. You got rain starting out in Kansas City, and it could switch to heavy wet snow sometime this afternoon. Snow's wrapping all the way down in here into the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. It could be blowing around like crazy. At the same time, you got severe weather ongoing in the southeast side of Texas, snow falling in the panhandle of Texas, which seems to happen just about every year. It's not super abnormal, honestly. Texas is such a big state. But you get into later this afternoon to this evening, an all-out snowstorm begins in northern Missouri. Columbia, Missouri is going to be a weird area where you very well could stay snow for a period of time. There's that massive dry slot. Stays heavy snow up in Nebraska. Stays snow in the northern counties of Kansas. Eastern Kansas this evening. It's snowing pretty good. Could land, Dodge City getting snow. And then this is wrapping up and then heading northeast with a little bit of snow that could drift down into northern sections of Arkansas as we're waking up tomorrow morning for sure. So let's go on and zoom into the severe weather threat. Storms are initializing in North Texas right now. And then we'll stop it right here. This is this morning. Convection beginning to fire in eastern Texas. And then we start to get into this afternoon. This is around 2 p.m. this afternoon in eastern Texas. This is that area early this afternoon where you got to watch out for tornadoes in southeast Texas. Especially right down here. You see these kind of looks you're seeing, kidney bean look. I wish there was a section on Weather Bell for eastern Texas, but there's not. But if you look right in here, these are the storms right in here that could be dangerous as they're entering Louisiana, especially and really way down here near Houston and kind of just west, just east of the city. And we just got to watch out. Little extension of storms gets going later this afternoon. Could make it and kind of one last hurrah for Houston where you have a severe weather threat, and then this heads on out. Maybe some additional post-frontal convection gets going, but the severe weather threat will be over at that point. The updraft Felicity swath, it shows where it spikes here in southeast Texas. So please be aware, you do have a signal for rotating thunderstorms in this region. So be aware of that. The snowy side of this, they've increased the snowfall totals for, eastern sections of Kansas and northern Kansas. I mean, you got widespread amounts of pushing 8 to 12 inches in southeast Colorado. I mean, they're even going for 8 to 12 inches in the far western 2 counties of Oklahoma. A little bit of snow in the panhandle of Texas. Heavy snow in extreme northeast New Mexico. There's some disagreements here, it looks like, from the National Weather Service in Pueblo and National Weather Service in Goodland. But, right up here in Goodland, heavy snow, and I'll kind of zoom into Kansas here. I don't have each individual National Weather Service panel pulled up like last night's video. That would have taken me another 30 minutes to prepare for this video. But basically in northwest Kansas, you're good for 8 to 12 inches of snow. 6 to 9 inches of snow in the northern counties of Kansas. But, you get into Kansas City, they've actually dropped the snow. Maybe calling for an inch and a half now. But the winds are going to be a big deal. And I'll show you Nebraska here in a second. But the winds, here they go. They start to crank up really this afternoon. And you're going to have all this snow still blowing around in western Kansas with 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. And look at, eastern Colorado, folks, same deal down into this region. Widespread. 50, 65, someone's going to probably get a 70 mile per hour wind gust. And you still got snow blowing around in this region right in here at the same time. So there's a lot going on with the snow and the wind, all out blizzard conditions in this region. And that's why ultimately you have those blizzard warnings in this area. They've actually extended all the way into Nebraska now, where it's still snowing in Nebraska, and you got scattered wind gusts pushing, the 35 to 45 miles per hour. So up here in the north central U.S., it's quiet for the most part this morning. Snow flying around, and got a piece of hair in my mouth. Snow flying around in southwest Minnesota, eastern sections of South Dakota. But this will continue to increase as we get later in the morning. This is about midday. You got an all-out snowstorm cranking up across central and eastern Nebraska. This is beginning to pick up in southwest and western Iowa. This continues, snowing pretty heavily in northern Missouri at this point. This is around 6 p.m. Central Time, so this is in Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Central Time. So getting into this evening, heavy snow begins to move into Des Moines, southern Iowa, western Iowa, and you keep this going, and this is when it starts to crank up for northern and northwestern and western Illinois as we get deeper into this evening. Snow making it all the way up into northern sections of Minnesota, snow all the way back into eastern South Dakota, and this keeps going, and this is when it gets tricky. I discussed this in great detail in last night's video with Chicago and Milwaukee. How long are you going to hang on to rain because of the warm waters of Lake Michigan? But you start to get to the middle of the night tonight, heavy snow flying around in the northern half of Illinois, snow beginning to make its way into the northern counties of Indiana, Indianapolis. I think you'll struggle with rain-snow mix, but if you can get some heavier enough precipitation, you might switch to a period of heavy snow overnight tonight. Snow beginning to make its way into southwest Michigan. And I think at this point, you could be switching to all snow, maybe in Chicago to Milwaukee. Milwaukee's still going to get a good bit of snow. Chicago's the big question mark. But here it goes. You could start off with some heavy wet snow around the Cleveland to Detroit area. Very heavy wet snow waking up tomorrow morning, but you do switch to rain. And as we're going to go on and make our way into Tuesday also. But as you're getting into Tuesday morning, this is when this cranks up for the Great Lakes region. But it's still snowing back here in Iowa. Heavy snow still ongoing. There's two rounds with this system. First round and the second round are kind of connected, but there's two distinct areas of moderate to heavy snow. You start to get into Tuesday afternoon. This is when you're going to start to struggle with rain again in Chicago. Same thing with Milwaukee. You're getting kind of dry slotted here in southwest Michigan tomorrow afternoon. Heavy snow beginning to fall in northern Michigan, even the UP and Michigan. All of Wisconsin seeing snow at this point tomorrow afternoon, except maybe the extreme southeast portion. But man, a lot of snow falling. You guys have been quiet up here for winter. It's no longer going to be quiet. And it takes it all the way out to the middle of the night, Tuesday night, and it's still snowing in the Great Lakes region. So snowfall, look at kind of like the northern plains. Nebraska is going to get hit hard, anywhere from 6 to 12, 13 inches of snow. The further east you get in the state, the more snow. The Sioux Falls, Sioux Cities regions, and southeast South Dakota, good 8 to 12 inch snowfall. And then certainly we are looking at Iowa. And I think southwest Minnesota is going to get an appreciable snowfall too. And, a good, I would say, anywhere from 6 to 11, 12 inch snowfall in this region. And then we look at Iowa. I think Iowa's going to get hit hard, and I knew it was going to do that. Here we go. I think Iowa's going to get hit hard with this storm. This takes us all the way through Thursday morning, because this is probably counting another little quick hitting system that moves through. But Iowa, an all-out snowstorm coming with you folks. Not a whole lot's changed from last night's video. Northern Missouri, a substantial snowstorm heading for you folks. 8 to 12 inch snowfall. But I really think eastern sections. What is it? Williamsport in this region, like Davenport. All these areas. Quincy's going to get a big snowstorm from this. A good foot snowfall right in here. Maybe give or take a couple inches in this region. But a big storm heading for you folks. And then you look a little bit further on up the road, the Great Lakes, upper Midwest region, northern Illinois getting a solid 8 to 12 inch snowfall. They're only going for 2 inches of snow in Chicago. Hey, but that's more than what they were showing last night. It's going to be so tricky in Chicago. You get just west, even southwest of the city, more snow expected. But look at northern Indiana. A few inches of snow now forecast, and you're going to get a quick 1 to 2 inches of snow in northern Ohio tomorrow morning, and then just most of the state of Michigan forecasting at least some snow. But you got to get to the northern sections of lower Michigan, to the UP of Michigan. especially the central to eastern UP area, to get a good 8 to 12 inch snowfall. That's the common theme, 8 to 12 inches. Milwaukee, it's going to be tricky. Maybe 4 to 6 inches around the city. You get an hour west of the city, you're going to start to see foot snowfall totals, 8 to 12 inch snowfall totals in this area. So extreme southeast Minnesota, pretty big hit. Nothing that you guys can't handle in this area of the country. But yeah, western U.S. All right, big storm moving in. A lot of heavy snow. Blizzard conditions will be ongoing throughout the day in the Olympic Mountains, the Cascades. Heavy rain in the lower elevations. The lower elevations are not cold enough for snow at this point. That could change on deeper into the week. Pretty decent snow event across the west of Washington State, northeast Oregon getting snow. You keep this going, another push of moisture comes in to late tonight, after midnight into tomorrow morning, and you continue just to get rounds of heavy convective moisture funneling into these regions. Heavy snow in the northern Rockies flying around, and then we take it all the way out to Tuesday afternoon. You still are just getting rounds of heavy precipitation, but it's not congealed together like today's storm. It's like rounds of almost convective moisture pulling into the area. Northern Rockies, heavy snow flying around, and then we're getting all the way to tomorrow night, and this really starts to crank up for the Cascades and Oregon into northern Cal. But holy smokes, folks, this is crazy. Snowfall between now and Wednesday morning. It's 48 hours. Feet of snow in the Cascades. Feet of snow in the Olympic Mountains. Northern Rockies, a lot of snow. Heavy rain in the lower elevations. And just a broader look at the Rockies between now and Thursday morning. Just, the ski resorts, the ski country out here getting crushed. If you live in higher elevation, just a ton of snow. This is the situation when you look at your local forecasts in these regions. You really do, because, everything's microclimate driven out here, just depending on elevation. You guys know that. But temperatures today in the eastern U.S., I would say enjoy the somewhat warmer temperatures across the eastern U.S. Because I do think certain areas will get locked in below freezing for a period of time that, are getting into the upper 30s today. But the southeast, 50-degree temperatures, 60s in the in Florida. The northeast, 20s and 30s for highs. Texas will be a weird state where the panhandle of Texas is below freezing. But you get down in here into the coastal regions of Texas. Brownsville could reach 90 degrees a day. Amarillo won't get out of the 20s. So pretty wild stuff. So definitely dynamic weather out there. And that's how it is with these very strong systems. And it's getting pretty cold out here in the Rockies, but nothing too crazy compared to average for sure. So moving forward here, let's talk about the eastern U.S. for kind of the rest of this system. And I've kind of already discussed the Great Lakes region for tomorrow. So let's go on and really focus on the northeast and the southeast. And here it is. When you get this kind of shrimp look where you got this heavy top but skinny bottom right down here, you have kind of a comma head structure here. You have a very strong storm system. Heavy wind-driven rain tomorrow afternoon throughout the mid-Atlantic, North Carolina, through the Delmarva region. Winds will be, whipping 40 to 50 miles per hour. Heavy interior northeast snow to kind of start this off. Several inches of snow right off the dot. You keep this going. Heavy rain ongoing in southern New England, the I-95 corridor. Just a wind-driven rain. But this snow that starts off like, Robin and up here in the interior northeast, just when you hear me say names, that's just some of the usuals that we have with the channel, and I've memorized some of the names throughout the channel. But I know she lives up here in the interior northeast. I think you live in Vermont. I get it confused, maybe New Hampshire. But Adirondacks getting crushed with heavy snow right at the start of the system. But this is going to be a very heavy wet snow right at the beginning of this. But I do think you'll eventually try to switch to rain. Look at this line of storms back down here. We're going to get deeper into this. And then one thing that is really kind of messing with my curiosity, we're going to get some back end rain and snow showers all the way back down here in Tennessee late tomorrow evening into tomorrow night. It even shows it down to northern Alabama, North Georgia. Could this swing down here, this back end energy here, and deliver some snowfall accumulations for like the Cumberland Plateau? There's so many small things ongoing in all these big things. So this back end energy could dump additional snowfall accumulations across the Ohio Valley, even down to the Mid-South. We need to figure that one out. But snowfall between now and about Wednesday afternoon, they're calling for over a foot of snow in interior sections of Maine. Kind of these areas that didn't get maybe as much snow with this winter storm this past weekend could get several inches of snow. The Adirondacks, good 8 to 12 inches of snow forecasted. So, a lot of snow in northern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, especially New Hampshire, into Maine. So a little bit of light snowfall accumulations, even for the interior, mid-Atlantic, northeast regions. Winds are going to be a huge deal. When you got the strong winds up against the Gulf coastline, high winds off the coast, Delmarva, even the coastal regions of south of the Carolinas, 40, 50, 55, 60 mile per hour wind gusts are going to be ongoing. Strong winds in the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, West Virginia, eastern hills of Kentucky, strong winds. The western sections of New York State, 50, 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts coming off the lakes. And then southern New England, as we get more so into Tuesday night into Wednesday, it's going to feel like an all-out nor'easter. You could get hurricane-force winds out in Cape Cod and the coastal regions of Maine. This is a big deal with the winds for sure. Now, let's talk about the severe weather threat. The severe weather threat for tomorrow. So, it's going to be a big deal. This has changed dramatically from last night's video. You now have a level 3 out of 5 risk from North Florida, the Panhandle of Florida, through southeast Alabama, which, by the way, I think this area will be more so for tomorrow morning. But an enhanced risk all the way through central southern Georgia, central and eastern South Carolina, and all of eastern North Carolina. Slight risk in the level 2 out of 5. And folks, I've always kind of thought, in my personal opinion, that Tuesday was a bigger deal than Monday night. I kind of mentioned that a few days ago. Not saying I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I just think that it's going to cover more of a populated region just because it's covering just more real estate. So level 3 out of 5 risk. Look at this tornado risk. It's kind of a bimodal hatched risk. Brown, 5% risk of a tornado. The yellow, we've kind of discussed this. The yellow is a 10% risk of a tornado. And it's also a 10% risk of a significant tornado, which remember is an EF2 or higher. 10% risk of a tornado here, 10% risk of a tornado here. Down here it includes Tallahassee, Dothan, Alabama, southwest Georgia. Over here it includes Augusta. It includes Hilton Head, Edisto Island, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Orangeburg, Florence, Columbia, Fayetteville, down here to Wilmington, all the way up to the Outer Banks, guys. A 10% risk of a tornado. Schools will be canceled tomorrow, no doubt. I think they should be, in my personal opinion. So we'll start off where we left off in the beginning of the video when we're in the southeast section. And we're taking a look at the evolution of these storms, and here they are. They're starting off tomorrow morning. And I think even though the severe weather threat won't be as high in Atlanta, I think you're waking up tomorrow morning with very strong winds, heavy rain. I don't think you'll have as high of a tornado threat up there. But this line is making its way. The thing is, how much convection do we get ahead of this main line? This main line will, one, be producing high winds and then a risk of tornadoes, okay? But if anything gets going in this area ahead of the line, like you're kind of seeing up here, this becomes dangerous. And you keep this going, a very strong line, and here it is. That's why you have a 10% risk of tornadoes up here in South Carolina. You see this convection popping off in kind of the PD of South Carolina into eastern North Carolina. We'll get closer at this. Those are the storms you got to watch out for. You really do. And you keep this going, this line of storms blasts through North Florida, Georgia, and the rest of South Carolina. And then look at the back end snow behind this. This could become a developing storyline for itself. We'll take a look at Florida. I don't think it's going to be a big deal for Florida, but you will have a thin line of storms that works its way through the state tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, through tomorrow night. So I just wanted to show you guys that a little bit closer up the road. Do you see these areas right in here? These little they look almost like they're hooking somewhat, a little bit of a kidney bean look. These are your rotating thunderstorms right in the middle of that intense low-level jet with dew points climbing into the low 60s in this region. This is the danger zone in this region right in here. These where you watch out for these semi-discrete supercells is what we call. And then the initial line moving in, and this is 2, 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, will bring strong winds from Charlotte, Columbia, and everybody else in between. And then you got to watch out these storms all the way into eastern North Carolina, maybe even southeast Virginia tomorrow evening. And then look at this line of storms. This line of storms can have a tornado threat too. And then this finally heads on out. Look at this snow breaking out across the southern Alps. This will be something I want to watch here for sure. As a punch of cold air comes in behind it. The updraft felicity swath through this region. Look how high it is in the morning, tomorrow morning, in the Panhandle of Florida, southeast Alabama, southwest Georgia. And then it kind of enhances in this area right in here. Not as high, but I do think that we will have still a threat over here. We're going to have to go back to this, into that, and all this rigmarole. Here we go, here we go, here we go, and here it is. I know y'all can hear me clicking on my keyboard. I saw a couple comments saying you can hear me. It's just my setup, guys. I just kind of roll with it, folks. But you look at the updraft Felicity swath, symbolizing the threat of rotating thunderstorms in the eastern sections of the Carolinas. It just has those highlighted areas, and this could certainly increase. But this doesn't always show the bigger picture with this. High winds with this is the National Weather Service. This will be conservative, but you see, this is wind gust. All right, 40, 50, 55 mile per hour wind gusts surging its way through Georgia, the Panhandle of Florida, northern Florida. They're going for a max wind gust in Columbia to Orangeburg, Florence of anywhere from 40 to 50 miles per hour. Along the coastal regions, winds will be absolutely insane. You go up into, North Carolina with this, and, same thing, guys. Just scattered 35 to 45 mile per hour wind gust, and then you look up into kind of the intercoastal regions of the Delmarva, very high wind gusts up into this region. The Outer Banks, it'll feel like an all-out tropical storm for sure. And we've kind of already showed you that. But moving forward, guys, and folks, this is going to be a big deal. We'll do another update on this tonight. There's another storm system coming behind this, guys. We're going to start this off Thursday afternoon. There's a severe weather threat with this too. But look at this snow breaking out across Nebraska. This is another winter storm for the Midwest, getting into Friday morning. Back in low, switches from rain to heavy snow in Missouri. Heavy snow falling in like the St. Louis area where you'll get mostly rain with this. Heavy snow in Chicago with this. Getting into Friday evening, heavy snow into Michigan. Turns into a major winter storm for the Great Lakes region Friday night into Saturday morning. All right, that's the Euro with the central U.S. A lot of Arctic air funneling behind this that we've talked about. We don't even have time to discuss that in this video because there's so much going on. What about the GFS? Same thing starting off Thursday afternoon. Snowstorm cranks up again in northern Kansas, Nebraska, and northern Missouri. And then into Illinois. We're getting into Friday morning. Heavy snow into Chicago Friday afternoon. All rain. All rain for Kansas City to St. Louis. Then switches to heavy snow in Kansas City sometime Friday afternoon. And then same thing for St. Louis. Heavy snow. And then with the GFS, it turns into a major winter storm for the Midwest and the Great Lakes region. And then that heads on out. All right, so what about the snow signal from this? The European likes this area right in here. All those states you see, a solid signal, kind of like the same areas that are getting hit between now and the next 48 hours. Another hit is coming. That's a pretty solid snowfall mean in 24-hour periods, and then it increases once it gets into the Great Lakes region. What about the GFS ensemble with the same signal here? Here it comes, dropping down, solid signal right in here. Not as far west, but solid signal into the northern Ohio Valley, the Midwest, and the Great Lakes region, right into here. All right, the eastern U.S., here it comes. The other system, Great Lakes region, seeing snow. Could start out as interior, northeast snow again, but it looks like more rain based off this run. 970 millibar low in lower Michigan. Pretty wild. Heavy snow wrapping in. Cold Arctic air wrapping around this low. Big hit for Canada. Winter storm cranks up across Maine, then switches to rain. Arctic air filters over the Great Lakes and kickstarts maybe a vigorous lake effect snow event as we get into the later portion of this weekend. Arctic air beginning to try to settle down. Now, what about the GFS with this? Here it comes. A little clipper event will add additional snowfall totals midweek into the Great Lakes region. Here comes the GFS with the storm system. Heavier snow for northern Ohio and just it's further south into the Ohio Valley sections, and delivers a pretty decent front-end thumping of snow. This will be a major winter storm for Buffalo, New York, and northern PA, but eventually even those areas will switch to rain. Arctic air wraps in around this low, just like the Euro shows. This is all snow in Canada, Quebec, and Ontario. Heavy snow into the Ohio Valley, wrapping in, and then this heads on out, kickstarts that intense lake effect snow event later this coming week. Later this weekend, really. What about the snow mean for this? The European, we're a little bit too far ahead. The European model, it's pretty high for the northern Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes region, the Midwest, into southern Ontario. I mean, you already, with just this system alone, have a 8 to 10 inch snowfall mean in this area. Interior northeast too, another big hit into eastern Canada. That moves out. Let's take a look at the GFS ensemble with this. Same kind of deal. Here it goes. Make sure we don't get all these storms mixed up because they're easy to get mixed up. And there's that signal based off that. No, I'm sorry. Here comes the signal, the late week storm. Here it is, pretty high. Kind of the same areas, but a little bit further south in this region. And this heads on out. Folks, also, there's a severe weather threat with this. This is the second system that I just discussed. They already have a 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in a given location. It's kind of the same as the lead time that we had in front of the severe weather that's going to happen today into tomorrow. But already a 15% risk of severe weather down here in Louisiana, southern Arkansas, eastern Texas, areas of western Mississippi. And look, day 5. Look at this huge 15% risk area from the deep south all the way to the southeast. So this is a pretty substantial threat and risk this far out, I would say. So we don't know if this is going to be substantial, really. But, I mean, already at day 5, which is I've done lost track. This is for Friday. Goodness. So this is for Thursday. This is for Friday. Pretty wild stuff. And we'll dive deeper into that when we can get everything out in front of us, behind us. But even behind all that, folks, and we'll round it off with this. All right, there goes our second storm system. There is a pretty solid model agreement that Arctic air will dive down into the central and eventually getting into the eastern U.S. Could be a substantial great kind of lake effect snow event across the Great Lakes, and then moisture bubbles up, causes an overrunning event. This is getting into about a week out, and it shows a major winter storm across North Texas. Yes, this does include Dallas. This is not a forecast. Not a forecast, folks. Major winter storm for Oklahoma. Major winter storm for Arkansas. Has ice all the way into northern Louisiana. This basically just looks like a big mid-south and then western deep south hits. Tennessee, big winter storm. Northern Alabama getting snow. And look, this is oozing into Arkansas, North Carolina, Virginia, the Mid-Atlantic getting hit pretty good with this as we get into Tuesday, next Tuesday, and then this could be a hit for the I-95 corridor. But that's pretty far out. We have 2 major storms out ahead of us to figure out. But a lot of model guidance continues to point to this, folks. A third storm getting into after this coming weekend to early next week. And you can see it on the GFS too. It's just a little bit further north. Here it is developing right into here. And if we can get this cold air to push in faster, this will suppress this low a little bit further southeast. In fact, there is some ensemble runs kind of showing a hit further southeast, like even deeper into Georgia, into South Carolina, North Carolina. But the GFS, really hits more so the south, kind of the mid-south, Mississippi Valley region, and then it's mostly rain. And then it tries to get something going right here at the end as another low tries to develop. So, folks, there's a lot going on. I've never seen it like this in my life. Not in my life, but since I've been actively following weather, and certainly since I've been on YouTube. So, God bless all y'all. Have a great day. Stay safe. We'll do it again this evening, and I'll talk to you soon.